Hey there, freedom lovers. Welcome to the Mortgages and Mimosas Podcast, where we help women just like you to strategically buy their first house in order to accelerate the path to financial freedom. Now, if you have watched me at all, if you know me, I 100% believe that buying your first house strategically can completely change your financial trajectory. 100%. Happened to me. So I bought my first house when I was 28 in New York City, making $50,000 a year, $48,000 actually, specifically, and I had over $100,000 in debt. But because I bought that first house very intentionally, less than 10 years later, I was able to have the flexibility to walk away from my full time job. Now, for every story like that, where there is a success in buying your first house, there are so many other stories of people that buy their first house and then find themselves regretting that decision, finding themselves just working and working to pay this house and just finding themselves not making progress, but instead being trapped in this build that's not really giving them that freedom that they thought they were going to have. So, in today's episode, I'm going to talk about three different things that you want to ask yourself and assess to see if maybe it may not be a good time to buy your first house right now, and it might be better to continue to rent. Now, if this is the first time that we are meeting, my name is Nobu Musekiwa, and I help women go from frustrated and overwhelmed with their credit to confident and excited to apply for their first mortgage. So if that is you, go ahead and find me on Instagram. I am Nobu Musekiwa there, and send me a DM and just say frustrated, and we can chat. So if you were here right now, you probably thinking about buying a house, but you're not really sure. So let me know in the comments, what is it that has you nervous about buying your house right now? What is your biggest concern? I am checking the chat and I will be responding. So go ahead and drop your comments in there. So, the very first thing that you want to think about when you're deciding whether you should rent or continue to, whether you should buy or continue to rent is, what is your plan for this house that you're going to buy? What is your game plan? So now that might be a little bit confusing. Might be like, well, yeah, my game plan is to get a place to live. Okay. But a lot of people want that place to live because they think that it's going to be an investment. They think just buying a house is an investment. So, what is, if your plan is for it to be an investment, how is that going to work exactly? If you ask a lot of first time home buyers or people looking at houses, they're going to tell you, well, whenever I sell my house, I'm going to make money from it. But then if you ask, okay, how? They have no idea. And so if you're in a place where you don't know how you can actually make money off of this first house that you're going to buy, then it's probably not going to make you money, right? It might, but you're really just gambling. You don't have a solid plan. So the two things that you want to think about when you're thinking about how am I going to make money off this house are equity and cash flow. Those are the two ways you make money off of real estate. And even though you're buying this house for you, you can still think like an investor and have those two concepts in mind. So you have a better chance of buying a house that is actually going to move you forward in building wealth as opposed to keeping you caged in and just adding on another bill. So let's talk about what equity is for a little bit, and then we'll talk about cash flow in a second. So, equity is the gap, the difference between how much you owe the bank and how much your house is worth, right? So, if you buy a house cash money, then the full value of the house is your equity. Whereas most of us don't have it like that, right? So, you need to get a mortgage. And so, if your mortgage is for $50,000 and the house is worth $100,000, then you have $50,000 in equity. And the idea of I'll just buy and it'll go up in the future, yes, that's fine. But if you want to have more control, you want to guarantee that you are making a right decision, then you can think about forcing equity in this house that you want to buy. So you can, for examples of how you can force equity are, for example, buying a house that needs work. So buying a house where, let's say, it's really ugly inside. There's some holes in the walls. The kitchen is old. The bathroom is old. Most people aren't going to want to buy that. And so you're going to be able to get it at a way cheaper price because you're going to have to put work in it. So if you buy it at a good price and then you put work in it, but how much you spent is still less than the value of that house, then you have automatically built equity. You have forced that equity for yourself. And you don't want to be hoping and dreaming. You want to make sure, you want to ensure that you're actually making money, right? If you want to make money, drop a one in the chat. Let me know, because I know I want to make money. So I'm not gaming on hoping and dreams. I want facts. So you can get a house and fix it up. You can buy a house that is cheaper than the value. So if every house on the block is selling for $400,000, but then, there's a house where for whatever reason they need to leave the country ASAP, they might be willing to drop the price for that at 350. So if you get it at 350 instead of 400, you automatically have 50,000 in equity straight from the jump, and that's what you want. What you don't want to do is spend more than what the house is worth, or be right where the house is worth, because then you don't have a way of ensuring that you are going to build equity with that house. Another way you could build equity is by, adding more value in that house. So, for example, if you buy a 2-bedroom house, but it happens to have a lot of space, then you can go ahead and add an additional bedroom. And by adding that bedroom in, then you are building equity. You are forcing that equity for yourself. You're not waiting and hoping. So, all of this takes work. Absolutely. And most people aren't willing to do extra work. And so if you are in a place where you're serious about building wealth through this first house, then these are your options for equity play, or some of your options. And most of your peers won't be doing all this. They want to just get in and be in a house that's perfect. So you already have less competition, because you're going to do more than what others are willing to. Let me know in the chat what questions you have. And if you're finding this helpful, go ahead and tap that like button. So I know that this is helpful to you. So let's double back and talk about cash flow. So if you want to make money with that first house, you're going to focus on equity, or you can focus on cash flow. So cash flow is how much, but the difference between what is coming in and how much money is going out. So when talking about cash flow with this first house, is how are you going to make money off of this house every single month? Right. So equity is more of, how am I going to make a large chunk of money after doing a specific amount of work, but you won't actually get paid from it right away. There are ways to get that equity, which we'll talk about in a different video. But in terms of cash flow, every single month, you're guaranteeing you're getting some kind of check from this house. Right. And I personally, I like cash flow because I like my dollars and cents to be adding up where I can see it, where I can touch it. So I prefer to bank on cash flow, but either way is fine. So different ways we can create cash flow with this first house is, if you're buying a single family, if you have extra rooms, you can get a roommate. People downplay roommates, but your roommate can help you reduce your mortgage cost a lot, right? So if you have a roommate that's now paying a good chunk of your mortgage, now you have created cash flow in your budget, where now you have extra money to take to do whatever you want, whether that be paying off debt, whether that be paying down this mortgage faster, whether that be buying crypto, whatever you want. It's up to you. Another way you can create cash flow is by buying a multifamily, right? So buying a 2-family, 3-family, 4-family, where now every single month you are getting rent from tenants in this building that you are also living in. And that way you are guaranteeing that, again, you are paying less towards your mortgage, which means that there is more cash flow in your budget. So you can accelerate your wealth. You can accelerate your flexibility options for the future. Now, investors, the best investors are going to tell, it's going to sound fancy, where maybe they're wholesaling, or they are flipping, or they're doing the bear burr method. All that is just a variation of either focusing on equity or cash flow, combination of both. So if you are clear on which one of these you're going to use to make money, then that is going to put you in a better position to actually make money with your first house. If you don't know how you're going to make money with your house, if you have no idea, then it may not be a good time for you to buy a house, because you might just make a decision that's emotional, that's based on, hey, I like this house, but then you end up like a lot of people, where now they are scrambling to pay this debt, and they don't even know why they even got into this house to begin with. So Sweet Tea, hi from Austin. How's it going? Multifamily, yes, I absolutely love multifamilies. I will drop a link for you in a little bit to get more information on that. Let me know, Sweet Tea, what is it? Why is it that you're interested in buying a multifamily? I am curious. I have my thoughts as to why, but I'm curious as to why you want to buy your multifamily. So now let's talk about reason number two, or question number two you want to ask yourself before you jump into buying this house is, do you have enough money to make this happen? Like, are you going to end up broke when you buy this house? Um, you are going to spend a decent amount of money to buy this house, but then once you have this house, you're gonna have to do a few things, right, to make this house comfortable. I'm sure you're gonna want to buy some furniture for this new house. You're gonna want to, make it nice, make it your own, and all other things in life are moving forward, right? You still have to pay your bills. You still have to, do your regular stuff that you're doing. So have you done your math and calculated how much it's going to cost to actually buy this house? And then how much it's going to cost for you to actually make this house livable? And not just that, but have extra money in case something happens. Fun story. When I moved into the house that I'm in right now, it got fixed up, everything was new. And a couple months after that, the water heater broke. Literally. So if I didn't have money to fix that water heater, then I would have been in a place where I am now stressed because I have to pay that mortgage now and I have to pay that water heater. I can't just call my landlord and say, hey, I don't have hot water. Can you fix it? Right now, I am responsible for that. And so if you don't have extra money for after you buy this house, then maybe you should hang out and be a renter a little bit longer and save up the money so you have a contingency plan in case there is an emergency. Earlier last year, the boiler broke in this building. That was a solid 10 grand right there. And so these things are going to happen. It doesn't mean you shouldn't buy a house, but just make sure you have extra funds available in addition to your closing costs. So if you can have 3 to 4 months of extra mortgage payments on deck, that is helpful. And just have those hanging out. That way, if anything happens, then you have those extra funds available. If anything happens, you get laid off, which has happened to me while I've had this house. If anything happens and there's another pandemic, like, you want to have extra funds available so you can continue to pay your mortgage and you are prepared for emergencies that are going to happen in this building, because they are going to happen. So I have previous videos just talking through how you can estimate how much you're going to need for closing costs in detail. I will link those in the description below. But pretty much 6% of the home sale price is what you can estimate for your closing costs. So in addition to that, have a few extra $1,000 available in your bank, in your 401k, somewhere accessible, where if something happens, you can actually access them. So if it's going to leave you broke to buy this house, maybe it's not a good time to buy. You might want to just hang out and rent a little bit longer. Let me see. All right. So Sweet Tea saying that Sweet Tea is interested in getting a multifamily because of cash flow. Listen, I am on the same page. I am team cash flow on the way. Equity is a nice bonus for me, but I 100% want that cash flow because I want that cash money every single month. Who else wants that money? Let me know in the comments. So the third reason, or the third question to ask yourself or to think through before you buy this house is, are you even managing your money right now? So as a renter, do you have a system to manage your money? Do you have an actual real budget that you use, that you have and you actually follow? So you can have this beautiful budget written out with everything that you're supposed to do. But if you're not actually checking it to make sure that you are actually not spending more than you are making, if you aren't sure exactly what you can take out or remove in order to have more flexibility for buying this house, if you don't have a detailed understanding of your money, then it's not a good idea to buy a house, because like I said earlier, once you have this house, you are now 100% responsible for this building. And uh, it's not just a matter of paying your mortgage; it's paying your mortgage and making sure that if anything breaks down, you can actually um, keep the building functioning. Even in just in addition to that, even in just trying to figure out whether buying a house is affordable, if you don't have a budget, if you don't know how much you can actually pay in addition to your rent payment, then you are going to end up in a situation where you buy a house based on how much it costs as opposed to how much that monthly mortgage payment is and how it impacts your actual budget. So I'm in a lot of like first time home buyer forums. So many people get to a place where they've looked at the house, they put an offer, the offer is accepted, and they're in those final stages of getting this house. And then they say, oh my God, my mortgage payment is going to be too high. But way before you get to the place where you're even putting a bid on that house, you should have already looked at your budget and understood exactly how much you can afford for this house. That way when you talk to the lender, you can tell the lender, hey, I know you told me I can get a mortgage for $600,000, but that'll make my mortgage payment $4,000 a month. I cannot do that. What can we do? What is my number that I need to buy a house at to make sure that my mortgage payment is $2,000 a month? So if right now as a renter you don't have the skill to look at your budget, you don't have a budget at all, or you don't have the skill to look at your budget and understand how much money you actually have, it's not a good time to buy, right? Because things only get more serious when you have this house, and it'll be extremely stressful for you to have a house and not understand what your money is looking like, and then also have to deal with this whole new huge responsibility that you have. Let me know in the comments. What are your thoughts? Do you have a budget? I am curious. Do you have a budget that you actually follow? Let me know. um, and would it be helpful if you got a template? I'm curious. So the things that you need to think through are, how am I going to make money off of this house? Um, do I have enough funds to hold me through after I buy this house? And then am I even managing my money right now? Right? Those are some of the things you can think through to decide whether it might be a good idea to buy a house or if you want to wait a little bit longer. Of course, there are a few other technical things like the credit score and all that, and that's all fine. Like that's things that you can work through. But the thing that most people don't take time to do is just take a time out and understand why they're buying this house and how it's actually going to help them financially. If you don't have a solid reason as to how this is going to help you move forward, then there's nothing wrong with continuing to be a renter, right? It doesn't make sense for you to jump in and spend all this money on this huge new bill that you're going to have if you don't even know why you're getting it. Don't be like everybody else and just get a house because it's what you're supposed to do. Be different and buy a house that's actually going to help you to move forward and to build wealth. So in the future, you have more options for your flexibility that other people don't have.